economic growth at North East Derbyshire County Council. I'm responsible for the growth strategy, and part of that, we've recently launched a skills strategy, and we are acutely aware of the need to bridge the skills gap in our area. In fact, I think skills gap is a problem across the United Kingdom. Skills not just to increase life chances, improve earning potential, but for our residents also, it's about actually improving productivity. One of the key factors in the decline in productivity is skills, and sadly too many of our local employees complain that they can't get the right employees with the right skills. And this is not just about the finished project. We all know that we learn lots on the job with the right kind of support, but it's also often about getting the right attitude and aptitude and the softer skills, and that's what employees require. So the RISE is an innovative, award-winning and unique business support initiative that connects small and medium-sized businesses across the Sheffield City and North Derbyshire region, working with talented, hard-working graduates. And it's about really trying to aim to provide small businesses with access to graduates, talent, skills, innovation, whilst giving graduates access to fantastic opportunities, great career progression, and the chance to make an impact on our wonderful region. And I'm delighted today to be joined by two people, Louise Farnworth from RISE itself, and also a local businessman, RES Environmental, Alan Aris. I'll introduce those two now in a little bit more detail. Louise is a project manager for the RISE scheme, and she joined the project in 2020. Prior to this, Louise worked in both public sector and professional service companies within their HR operations and recruitment teams, and has managed all aspects of the recruitment cycle and has led on national graduate recruitment campaigns. She was responsible for the overall delivery and management of the RISE project, including SME engagement and candidate screening. She's here today to tell a little bit more about the RISE scheme and how it could support you to recruit a talented graduate into your business. I'll just introduce Alan as well. So Alan, very, very pleased that you could come today. I think it's really important to hear from employees. I think recruiting the talent, the cost actually recruiting graduates and employees is enormous, and it is important to get the right fit. So with the support aspect from RISE and listen to your experience. Now, Alan is the Managing Director for RES Environmental Limited. It's an urban drainage and environmental consultancy set up in 2003 and based in Killamarsh here in North East Derbyshire. The company operates in the water and construction industry and specialise in all aspects of wastewater and river modelling, flood risk, stormwater management and drainage design. And I have to say that's a business that I think is naturally growing, sadly, but very important, a key area, I suspect, in a growing sector of our economy. Alan has over 40 years of experience in this niche sector, managing the growing company employing 20 staff, apparently home and abroad. And Alan says that he has found it difficult to recruit staff in this niche sector. Therefore, the business took the decision to recruit at graduate level, providing its own in-house training, support and experience to promote from within. And such the RISE programme has been a significant part of their growth strategy. And Alan hopefully will be able to tell us more from the employer's point of view. And I'm really pleased to introduce both of our speakers today. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers after this session. And we hope really to encourage more small businesses to think about the RISE scheme in terms of employing graduates. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom about this, because I've had the privilege of working with Maria, who's here today, as an intern. And I've met a number of school leavers recently, and I'm being really impressed by the quality and calibre of our young graduates. And I feel very optimistic for the future. Often job search and job matching is about supply and demand and finding the right match. So it does a little bit, Louise, feel like a match.com situation. So hopefully all questions will be answered. I think all the details of how to get hold of you, Louise, and the RISE project will be on the end of the presentation.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah.
Right, over to you, Louise. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that lovely warm welcome, Carolyn. I'm just going to share my screen now, share my slides. Hopefully you can all see that. So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. As Carolyn mentioned, we're here to talk about RISE and how RISE can support businesses to recruit graduates. That's the purpose of this session today. Okay, so the value of RISE. It is a support initiative designed to help SMEs in the Sheffield City region to recruit talented graduates. It was originally formed back in September of 2013, and it's had various sort of permutations during that time as well. It's part funded by the two Sheffield universities, so Sheffield Hallam and University of Sheffield, and in September 2019 we secured additional funding from the European Union of an additional £685,000. This has meant that the offering has slightly changed in terms of what we can provide service-wise to the businesses. So that includes a one-off grant payment, so £1,000 for most roles, and then £2,500 for more high-tech or specialist type roles as well. Really, the aim of the project is to help to remove the barriers to graduate recruitment for SMEs they face, and to equip them with the tools and know-how to become independent, confident graduate employees going forward. So it's not just about getting bums on seats, but about giving businesses the skills and tools they need to recruit going forward as well once we're no longer here. Okay, so the value of RISE. We commissioned an independent economic impact evaluation report, which identified that a net GVA of £7.7 million and an impressive return on investment of £14 for every £1 spent on the scheme. So it just demonstrated the phenomenal impact that RISE is having on the Sheffield City region. We've supported over 500 businesses to advertise over 700 graduate jobs. So it really helps demonstrate the real impact that RISE is having on the region's economy. Okay, so we're going to hear a little bit later on from Alan, sort of as a real life example of a business using RISE, but just want to share some examples of the value of RISE and why we'd encourage business to use us to recruit a graduate. So we provide them, first of all, with visibility in a highly competitive market. You know, we're very conscious that out there's a lot of larger companies, international, national companies recruiting with big flashy, graduate programs and so on. So it can feel at times that SMEs get lost amongst all that. So we give them a voice, we give them a presence in that market by using things such as our national RISE platform, such as prospects, and our relationship with the two universities to help promote their businesses and their roles. There's fantastic opportunities that are out there for the graduates. I think sometimes there is a misconception that graduates are only going to want to work for large scale companies. That isn't true. There are plenty of graduates out there that would much rather work for an SME, where they can have a real impact within that business. We give them access to a wide pool of graduate talent. So we do that through, again, our national platforms. We can reach UK and international graduates. We work really close with our two Sheffield universities, and they've got a wide reach for their final year students and also their alumni as well. So reaching a wide pool of talent out there. We support business to create a graduate-friendly advert. So we work with the business to understand, who are the business, what are their plans for the future, where does that graduate role sit within the business, and help to pull together a graduate-friendly advert, so making sure that it's reflective of the fact that that graduate may have limited work experience and so on, and thinking about what would attract a graduate when they're looking at applying for a role. We undertake the candidate screening. I'll go into a bit more detail about that a little bit later on, but we support the candidate screening process. So the intention is that when we put your candidates forward for our interview to you, they're the best of the best. We've screened them, we've got rid of the poorer candidates, we've put forward to you the strongest candidates that we think will be a good fit for your business. Also touching on the fact that we are looking to support you to become independent recruiters going forward. We do provide tools and templates and guides to help business through the process. Things such as final interview guidelines and example questions, for example, and also things thinking ahead. So things around graduate retention and development. So tools that you can use going forward to help develop and also retain your graduate in that position. All the documents are free for you to sort of pick and choose as you want. They're not mandatory. They're all in Word documents. So it's really for you to pick and choose and use how you see fit and how it fits within your business. And then most importantly, it's done by a team that are both personable and very knowledgeable. People that work on the RISE scheme have experience of supporting with graduate programs, whether it's within the university or outside of it. And in some cases, are recent graduates themselves who understand it from that side of things as well. So why recruit a graduate? So some businesses can be hesitant to recruit a graduate. I just want to run through some examples of why it's a good idea to consider having a graduate. So first of all, when graduates enter the labour market, they bring with them a fresh set of skills, which they're keen to put into practice. Those graduates who are actively seeking to work for an SME are keen to take on extra responsibility from an early stage in their career and have a real positive can-do mindset. So they want to kind of get involved, hit the ground running and have an impact within that business. Secondly, graduates like to come with you as a blank canvas with limited work experience, but that doesn't have to be seen as a negative. It means that you have not yet picked up any bad working habits, which we all have. I'm sure I can say myself I have. It's an opportunity to sort of mould them and build them and develop them to what you need as a business. They're also very good if you're looking to grow and develop your business with a limited budget. We appreciate for some businesses, particularly if you're just starting out, budget can be tight. So rather than investing in a more experienced hire who will be more costly, a graduate can be a more cost-effective option. So you can look to, again, invest in them, develop them, hopefully thinking about them developing in that business and growing and progressing to another role. And it also means that they're much more likely to be loyal to the business if you've invested time and money into their development. And finally, graduates can be an ideal solution for filling skills gaps. Graduates often don't follow a linear career. I'm a prime example. I did film and literature at university. I'm now working in kind of recruitment, so quite a bit of a shift there. So what you find is that they like to choose professions that are not directly related to their degree. And coming from a different background or discipline can help them bring a fresh perspective and tons of new ideas to your business because they've got a fresh pair of eyes. They could bring new ideas, experience they've gained from university or maybe part-time work can all be applicable and applied to your business as well. So here's the team. Here's my lovely RISE team. So we've got myself as the RISE project manager, joined by my colleague Amber, who is the SME engagement manager. So Amber's role is really that early stage of the SMEs, so working with them to support them with drafting their adverts and so on, so that initial period. We then got my colleague Annie, and Annie is the candidate engagement manager. So Annie's role is really around candidate support, so she's involved very heavily in the candidate screening process, offering guidance for candidates when they are applying for roles and so on. She leads that section. And then my two colleagues, Sarah and Anne, who are a job share, who are the SME relationship managers, and their roles are really key. What they're doing is ongoing support. So the RISE scheme is about, yes, getting a graduate into role, but also longer term for that is about how we can support businesses making relevant connections within the Sheffield City regions, things like the Growth Hub, for example, but also within the two universities. That's where Anne and Sarah's role comes in. So they play a key part of that process, making connections, checking in with the businesses at 3 months and 6 months, once the graduates start to see how things are going. And they then make those relevant connections and links into the universities, for example, whether that be things around internships, placements, projects. They help to sort of develop that relationship between the businesses and the two universities as well. So eligibility. So for a business to use RISE, we do have some eligibility criteria. So they do have to be an SME, so that is they have to be less than 250 employees. They must be based in the Sheffield City region, which does include North East Derbyshire. They have to be looking to recruit new additional graduate level jobs. And they also need to be new to graduate recruitment or looking to recruit graduates in a new way. So maybe have fairly limited experience in how to recruit graduate, may have done it several years ago, but it's not a regular occurrence, for example, and that's where we can really add value and support with the process. So as part of the commitment from the business themselves, we ask that they employ the graduate for a minimum of 12 months, and that is a shift. So in old RISE, if you like, prior to the additional funding, it could be a shorter term internship. We are looking for ideally a fixed term, 12 months, or actually ideally a permanent role for that graduate. Again, it's looking at a long-term plan rather than just a short-term fix, if you like. We'd ask that they pay a market salary, and when we do have discussions with business at the early stages during the advert, we do talk about sort of salary expectations from the graduate, examples of salary ranges for similar roles and so on. We do kind of guide and talk you through that process. We ask that they do have a line manager, they do have a support, someone who'd support them and guide them through when they do start with your business, and good quality work. We want them to feel valued and feel like they're adding value to the business and make sure they've got good quality work as part of that. And then finally, we do ask that businesses commit to our timescales. So we have a cohort that lasts around 3 or 4 months with key dates that we do share with businesses, and we do ask that they do work to those timescales and that they don't advertise the vacancy elsewhere. And we ask for that because it is a public funded project. A lot of time and money and investment from our side will go into that process. We do ask that they don't advertise anywhere else while we're supporting them through the process as well. So I'm going to talk through now with the sort of SME customer journey, to talk through the different stages of the process and what support the business has received from ourselves. Okay, so first of all, if a business is considering working with Rise, we will undertake an initial eligibility call. Tends to last between 10 to 15 minutes, a quick chat with the business where we'll kind of explain the Rise process in a bit more detail with them and also check the business eligibility. So making sure, they are an SME, they're in the right region and so on. We'll have a brief chat as part of that as well about the role itself, just to get a feel and make sure it does sound like a graduate level role. As long as both parties are happy, we'd look to arrange then a second, more structured call, which would last about an hour. And that's sort of more of a deep dive, if you like. So at that point, we talk a bit more about who the business are, where does the role sit within the business, what kind of skills they're looking for that individual, what are the criteria for that role, and so on. And work with them to build up an advert. We build that advert with them, and as part of that, we'd also talk about things such as salary range, degree subject, and making sure they're thinking carefully what the actual criteria are for that position, and making sure they're clear on what they're after. Really important for a graduate looking at a job spec, they understand what they need to have to be able to apply for that role. So then we'll draft that advert, we share it with the business, and we'll maybe a bit of ongoing discussion until we finalise that process. So SME engagement, as we call it, which is this initial stage, lasts just over 5 weeks. So we'll work with businesses during that period to have those initial calls and those longer, hour-long sessions to sort of flesh out the advert and so on. We then go through to the advertising stage. So all Rise roles will go live on the same day. So a big kind of launch of Rise, and promote that for the universities and our social media and so on. And all our roles will go live on Prospects. So Prospects is a graduate job board. It's got a wide-reaching, well-established platform. And they work really closely with us to help advertise our roles, to promote them to relevant graduates and all that sort of thing. We've got a really good relationship with them. So we'll advertise the roles. Their roles are advertised for a 3-week period. And we'll keep business up to date with how the vacancies are going during that stage, because all applications will come through to us and we will screen them as and when they come in. So we'll screen those applications as they come in. They do a short application question with their application form. We will screen that, and if suitable, they'll go to the next stage of the process. So the next stage for most roles will be a video interview. So they will go online. They record it recorded, answering 4 simple questions, which again we will screen as part of that process. And at that point, if they're suitable, they go to the final stage, which will generally be an assessment centre. Assessment centres are done online. We moved to online last year, as you can imagine, with COVID and so on, moved to an online process, and that's worked really well for graduates. They've found that's been a positive change for them. We're doing it online, where they do a group exercise and a written exercise. It's quite a nice day as well, because they may apply for all different roles. It doesn't feel like a competitive environment. They work much more collaboratively together, because they could be going for completely different positions and completely different businesses. So it's actually quite a nice assessment centre to run. I quite enjoy doing them, actually. There is an alternative route. So for most sort of general routes, recruitment, it will go through those stages. So application, video interview, and assessment centre. For more technical roles, so that could be things like engineering roles, for example, we offer an alternative route, which is entirely up to the business whether they want to use it or not. But we do offer an alternative route, our technical route, if you like, where they do an application form with an application question, as the others do. And then the next stage would be a technical test. So that technical test can either be provided by us, so we have a couple of standard ones that we can provide, or alternatively, they can provide a technical test for us to administer. Once that's been screened, again, if they're suitable, they then go forward to the business for the sort of final interview stage. The reason we offer that alternative route for technical roles is sort of twofold. First of all, we know that those type of graduates tend to be more in demand. The short supply of those graduates, and there's lots of people trying to get their attention, get them to apply for roles and so on. So we want to try and keep the process simple and short as we can for the graduate. But also what we tend to find, again, generally speaking, is those graduates who are more technical don't perform as well in things like the video interview and assessment centre. So we tend to offer that as an alternative route to try again source the best candidates for the business. We like to be adaptable in that respect. We also have our employer briefing, which businesses attend. It's a 2-hour session, again, done online, and that talks through, the RISE process and what we've done so far. Also support around the final interview process, so things to think about in terms of how to manage that process and questions and so on. But also, again, thinking about graduates going forward. So once you've got that graduate in position, how can you look to think about how you can retain them? So what is a graduate looking for in a role? What can you do to try and retain them and to develop them? So again, thinking that long-term picture. So once we've done our screen ourselves, that lasts around 5 weeks in total. So that's that application, video interview, assessment centre. We'll then do a wrap up internally and determine which candidates should go forward to the business for a final interview. So that tends to be anywhere between 4 and 6 candidates, and it will vary between, for different roles. Some roles will maybe have lower candidates if it's a harder to fill role. Some may have slightly higher, so it's around 4 to 6 candidates. We'll put those forward to the business. They'll get kind of a candidate pack, which will have any documentation the candidate's provided. So that can be CV, covering letter. Some provide additional documentation like certificates and so on, and also their scores, so business can see how they've scored through each stage of the process. We can also support with arranging final interviews for the business. So if they want us to coordinate that process, we can do. But then they will still undertake the interviews themselves. So we will support kind of booking candidates in, and the business will undertake the final interviews themselves. And as I mentioned earlier on, we do provide tools and guides. So we do provide final interview question suggestions that they can use and things like that to kind of guide them for that process as well. Hopefully the business interview and they find a fantastic candidate, which is what we're hoping for, and they make an offer to that candidate and hopefully appoint them. So they manage that process, because ultimately the candidate will be an employee of that business and treated just as any other employee within the business. So that the business handle that stage of the process as well. And then, as we touched on before, there is ongoing support and brokerage, which is handled by Anne and Sarah as the relationship managers. So once appointed, the graduate will undertake an online graduate development day. It's now a half-day session. And again, we'll talk through sort of that, helping support them with that transition from university life to work life. We'll talk about ways that they can, again, develop themselves. And we'll talk about various different things, talk about things like difficult conversations and various bits and bobs to help sort of support them and build their confidence a little bit when going into the workplace, because it can be quite daunting, particularly in these strange times where some graduates may not meet face-to-face with their employer straight away and so on. Just giving them some confidence and some hints and tips on how to manage that transition as well. It's also a great opportunity for them to network as they meet other graduates in similar positions, conscious that, again, they won't have had an opportunity to meet these graduates face-to-face in an assessment centre. So we help sort of, peer networking, if you like, as part of the session. And then we have our 3-month and 6-month reviews with the business. So someone from my team and then Anne or Sarah will have a 3-month review with the business, check in how the business is doing, how's the graduate settled in, and then talk about any ongoing support or brokerage they might require, for example, into the universities. At that point, Anne or Sarah will also have catch up with the graduate at 3 months, again, checking how they're doing, any support and so on they might need. And as a final check-up at 6 months as well with the business, to check in how are things going, any further support. And that relationship can be ongoing if wanted. So it's it's up to the business how they want to manage that going forward, but there's a key 3 and 6 month reviews. And then going forward, it's up to the business how much contact they want to have with Anne or Sarah going forward. It's important to say as well, there is a grant payment made to the business. So once the graduate has been with the business for 3 months, for the first hire, they receive that grant payment we spoke about. So again, £1,000 or £2,500. So, it's a nice little boost in terms of thinking about costs, onboarding costs for the graduate, where it's thinking about, IT equipment, all that sort of thing, that can perhaps help with covering some of those additional costs that the business has incurred by hiring that graduate. We have also introduced from Rise 6, which is our last cohort, what we're calling Next Steps, which is an extension of our existing support package. And it's designed for those SMEs who have accessed the Rise scheme twice or more before. Business receive the same upfront support, so they still receive the support with regards to drafting their advert and so on, and we still advertise through the universities and through prospects. But then from that point onwards, the shift in terms of the screening moved to the business themselves with support from their SME relationship manager. So Anne or Sarah will support them. So what will happen is applications go directly to the business, and then they're responsible for screening and shortlisting candidates themselves. And again, Anne and Sarah on hand, give them helpful hints and tips on how to do that process, and any support they may need as part of that as well. So it's a sort of a shift in giving more responsibility to the business. And again, we had our sort of first cohort last time round, and we're kind of looking, reviewing that, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't, and making adjustments going forward. We're hoping that business will find that as a positive, sort of giving them a bit more control and autonomy over the process than perhaps they've had before. So as I mentioned, our 7th cohort is currently live. It went live today, this morning. So if businesses are interested in finding out more, they can contact my colleague Amber, who's the SME Engagement Manager, and her details are up there. So our 7th cohort is live now, with graduates due to start sort of December time. So December, maybe January if that works for the business, that's absolutely fine. If it isn't quite the right time, that's absolutely fine as well. We do have 2 further cohorts coming up. So one that will run January to April, so the graduates starting April, May time, and then the last one will be running May till August. So you do have 2 other options there if this time-wise it doesn't quite work for you as well. It's also worth noting at the end of each cohort we do kind of what we call a mini talent pool. So that is for any graduates who weren't successful in the main cohort, who are still looking for roles. We can again support businesses with recruiting by potentially reaching out to those candidates who weren't successful and see if they're interested in an alternative role as well. Okay, brilliant. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm wondering if at this stage it's worth pushing the Q&A session at the very end. But I really want to thank you, Louise, for this very informative and engaging presentation. It's absolutely fantastic. It's lovely. I'm really happy that we get to spread awareness of all of this scheme, and how timely is it that your cohort starts today. So essentially, as soon as this is out, businesses can start signing up for it straight away. That's amazing. And on that note, we also have with us Alan from RES Environmental, who have recruited, as I am aware, 5 graduates through RISE. That's quite a few over the past few years, and they've gone through the entire process, and they have some fantastic insights now from a business perspective. So Alan, I'd like to hand over to you for a little bit of insight.
Okay, Maria, thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me along this afternoon. As was mentioned earlier, we're a small local SME based in North East Derbyshire. We work in the field of urban drainage, and we specialise in all aspects of wastewater and river modelling to assess flood risk and associated environmental impacts. We fundamentally build hydraulic models, and these models assess where it floods, why it floods, and then we try and deliver solutions to mitigate those flooding problems. As you can imagine, flooding in this country is hot news these days. There's regular news reports. We talk about global warming and climate change and changing weather patterns, and therefore the potential for our service offering has got legs. It's got the opportunity to grow even further. We use digital technologies to construct our models. That represent really intense rainfall. We can analyse the impacts on towns and cities, but we can also analyse the impacts on small local developments. Now, our client base is largely water companies and the Environment Agency, but this is a niche marketplace, and there's not many of us around, particularly small SMEs like this that offer this service. There are larger corporates out there who offer what we do, but only as a small part of many other services. Now, in terms of recruitment, we have always been up against these larger conglomerates, and we have to be quite persuasive in demonstrating why a graduate should come and want to work for a local SME rather than perhaps the more glamorous outlook that these larger conglomerates can offer or claim to offer. I feel as an SME, a local SME, we can offer a different opportunity to graduates. In my opinion, if you get employed by, in my industry, if you get employed in one of the larger corporates, the graduate can often be pigeonholed, and by that, in my world, he or she will be asked to focus on only one aspect of the model build, and indeed may only be allowed to work for one client on a framework over a number of years. I like to think that we try and ensure that our graduates get involved in every aspect of the project cycle, right from initial feasibility, right through the various aspects of model build and verification and reporting through to project sign-off. And I like to think, well, I'm sure that sort of level of experience and exposure at the start of their career is something quite special. And to be honest, working with RISE has helped us to sort of understand and articulate that offer to people who apply for a role with us. So getting the message across there that, you know, the RISE program has really helped us a great deal in that regard. We, as you can imagine, I don't suppose you've come across wastewater hydraulic modelers on a regular basis. So it is a niche market, and as such, we struggle to find people with experience, you know, people who can hit the ground running, you know, largely because they are already tied up in these larger organizations, and it's difficult to extract them from them. So our recruitment policy now, because of that difficulty, is to recruit at graduate level. We train and develop our staff internally, and hopefully promote from within. And indeed, we've got a few examples in the office here of people, not necessarily through the RISE program, as that's only been running with us for 3 or 4 years, but we've taken on graduates before. We've developed them in our ways, in our standards, and they've now been promoted from raw graduates through to sort of a senior modeler, senior management type roles within the business. The directors, myself included, we're not administrators, we're engineers. We come from engineering backgrounds, you know, and so when we do interviews, we're so much more comfortable drilling in to an experienced person. You know, we can drill into their technical know-how, we can talk about project experiences, we can challenge them on technical aspects of what we do. And we always find it, and have found it, difficult to interview graduates. As you can imagine, prior to RISE coming along, you know, you can get your graduates to come along to the interview. They're loud, enthusiastic. They show a lot of willingness and keenness. But equally, you can get the quiet, the shy ones, the introverted ones, who you know, just general shyness doesn't, you know, they've got the knowledge, you know, but it was so difficult in the past, you know, to employ and pick up on the right type of graduate. The other issue as well with working in such a niche market, the only way we could find to get hold of people with a genuine interest in our industry was to go through specialized recruitment agencies, and I am not a fan of most of these specialized recruitment agencies. They cost you an arm and a leg. I don't think they do the filtering that's required, and at the end of the day, their fees are high, to say the least. I mean, they will charge anything between 15 and 20% of the first year's salary, which, if you've got it wrong, can be a costly mistake. So, you know, while qualifications from our point of view are important, of course they're important, you know, along with some knowledge and interest in our field, by far the most important aspect at this stage for us are the personal traits. You know, and their ability to blend into our current team structures. That's critical for us. We've been involved now in the RISE program, as was said earlier. I think it's through 4 cohorts, and we've employed 5 graduates, James, Shannon, John, Sam and Harry. All 5 have now progressed through our internal training program, and now they're valuable members of the project team, and they're engaged on a variety of environmental projects for us. We've found the service to be of great benefit. It's, you know, it's saved us time and money. It really has. The RISE team have been very proactive, and they really have provided the support and guidance as necessary along the way. As was mentioned earlier, what we found most useful was the help with the advert. I found, apologies, I can't recall the lady who came in to draft the advert with us, but she had a flair to make the job very attractive and very appealing. I nearly applied for it myself, to be honest, after I saw the advert. Candidates, as Louise mentioned, have been filtered during the RISE pre-interview assessments. You know, the video interviews and the work that they do at the assessment centres looked into their drive, their business focus, their professionalism, you know, which, as I say, are the attributes I'm most interested in. RISE has helped us to pinpoint the wider traits and knowledge base we are seeking, and they've supported us to explore those qualities and candidates during the interviews. Yeah, as stated above, traditional recruitment methods we employed were a bit of a lottery, but to be honest, the RISE support has reduced that risk. As a result, the calibre of candidate during the first 3 cohorts was excellent, and the final choice was really very, very difficult. I remember the first cohort in particular, we had 8 for interview, and there was one which I must admit didn't tick all of the boxes I was looking for, but the other 7, I only needed 1, and it was really a very difficult choice in the end. To that regard, and it was mentioned earlier, as we are engineers and not administrators, we found the guidance for the interviews really, really useful. We have really taken on the RISE template that they provided. We've modified it slightly, but fundamentally the questions are all based around their motivation for the role, their interest in the role. It's based around their work experience, and it doesn't have to be in our field anyhow. I'm just keen to understand what type of work experience in any field, whether it's pushing supermarket trolleys or something, anything, you know, work experience you know, having been there and done something like that is important. And again, I do tap in a little bit on the technical knowledge in our field, just the basic stuff, nothing too taxing. But it's been really good. We obviously asked all the candidates the same sort of questions. We mark all of the candidates in the same way. Everything's scored relatively, and I like to think that the decision we eventually have come up with has been fair. So really, RISE has been a really successful experience for us. We're very pleased with the RISE team. They appear very professional. They offer excellent support during and after. And in all honesty, they have assisted in raising our profile. You know, as you can imagine, this industry is going through a boom time at the moment, and we have been growing over the last 2 or 3 years. And to be honest, the new recruits in the business have contributed to that brand awareness, if you like, that's gone up for us, and long may it continue. So if anyone out there are looking for a new graduate and want to try and tackle that recruitment in a slightly different way, then I would highly recommend following the RISE program. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Alan. That's absolutely amazing. It is just great to hear how helpful RISE have been for you. And as you say, recruiting graduates in your niche market has been a bit of trouble for you, and how they've managed to help you with all of that throughout the entire process of recruitment, and helping you to become more independent in that regard as well. So thank you both, Andy and Louise. And now I'll invite everybody to ask any of your questions, whether through microphone or in the chat. And I see Jill has already gone ahead and started putting some questions. So for Louise, how many graduates do you attract in each cohort? What types of degrees do they have? And what is the retention rate of the graduates during and after the first 12 months?
Well, in terms of retention rates, at the moment, we have we've recruited 5, and to be honest, we've lost 1. In all honesty, the one we lost, the role wasn't for them. So that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. In terms of there's no fixed number in terms of how many we take on each year. It depends on market conditions, of course. But at the moment, we are a team of 20. And we are looking to go to 25 to 30 over the next 18 months. And in terms of qualifications, that was the other aspect, wasn't it? Qualifications. Our graduates are qualified in things like environmental sciences, civil engineering, geography, because we use hydraulic modeling software and a lot of GIS mapping systems, so that the geographical know-how and background is useful to us. Yes, does that answer it?
Louise, do you have anything to add?
Just from as a wider RISE point of view, depends how many vacancies we're recruiting to, but application numbers overall will range between 500 and 700 applications across all the roles. So candidates can apply for up to 3 roles. So we limit how many they can apply for, because obviously if they apply for too many, it gets quite confusing, and really strong candidates may be put forward for lots of different roles, and that's not ideal. So between 500 and 700 per cohort. In terms of degree, a wide range of degrees, because for some businesses, depending on the type of role they're looking to recruit, it can be very open. So a marketing degree, for example, isn't always required for a marketing exec role, so it can be quite broad. So we have engineering degrees, marketing, journalism, English literature, sports science, a vast range of degree subjects that applicants will apply with. And again, for some roles, we need specific ones, depending on what they're doing. Some are but the wider degree sector, if you like, and others can be anything. So the sort of range in terms of the degrees we get is quite vast, really. And then what was the last question, Maria?
It's about what are the retention rates that you know of the graduates during and after the first 12 months?
So in terms of after 12 months, as I said, our last touch point with the business is 6 months. So we don't have exact figures in terms of retention. What we do find is a lot of good news stories. We've got examples of graduates who've progressed since they've joined businesses. We keep in touch with them through social media and so on. So we'll keep an eye on their progression. We'll see graduates who have progressed into more senior positions following their recruitment. We haven't got, unfortunately, specific details of how many have retained after that 12-month period, unfortunately. But the vast majority will still be there at the 3-month and 6-month point on check-in.
Yeah, luckily Alan got that question for us as well. He gave us a little insight. Carolyn, any questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the filtering. I thought that was an important point in terms of going through the traditional recruitment. The cost, I don't know what cost is now, but it must be enormous to recruit, and it must be so heartbreaking to actually put all that money and effort to not get a fit. So I was interested about the filtering, is there any opportunities to continue working with the students and the universities? And if it's a niche market, is there any aftercare in terms of support with the universities ongoing?
So in terms of the university, we're very close. Once we start to actually advertise roles and get candidates applying for roles, we will share their details with the relevant universities. Well, if they're a Sheffield Hallam or University of Sheffield graduate, their details will be shared with the universities to offer support to them. So there is we always do direct them to their career services for support during the process. So if they move progress to the next stage, we'll guide them towards their career service for any further support they might want in preparation. And the university is fully aware of what our process is in terms of what we're assessing at each stage, so they can offer the graduate support. So whether it's the application, what they should include on that, how to prepare a video interview, assessment centre, and so on. They're on hand to kind of guide them as and when needed if they want that additional support to hopefully get them to the next stage and so on.
I suspect the grant's probably very useful for a graduate coming out of university. Just to think about the first months of paying for salary, rent, costs of getting to work and basic stuff. So I think that's quite a nice. I would see that as I think I was a graduate, I'd see that as quite a nice little boost.
So the grant payment is paid to the business themselves rather than the graduate.
Oh right, I thought it was the graduate.
It was useful. It was useful. As was mentioned earlier, particularly in our business, IT is a big part of it. So to assist with the IT setup, the grant was very useful. Yeah.
For the recording, Marie, I'll just ask that question again. It sounded like very useful for the grant to go to the business. How useful was it for you, Alan?
It was very useful for me, Caroline. As you can imagine, our business is IT intensive, so the grant monies went towards new laptops, new software to support the graduate in their early years. Yeah, it was very good.
Oh, go ahead, Jane. You're going to intervene here. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering, because obviously within North East Derbyshire, the majority of our businesses are small businesses. We have about 90% of our businesses are actually small businesses, but like Alan. So I'm just wondering what you think are the main challenges for small businesses when recruiting graduates. Do they automatically think of recruiting graduates?
I think sometimes, there's two parts. I think businesses will sometimes make assumptions that they will struggle to get graduate, so they're not going to attempt to because they're going to be lured away by big businesses, which we know isn't true. We can evidence that we've recruited graduates for SMEs, and if there are graduates out there that don't want to work for large organisations, so that's part of it. And the other thing I think is a hesitance from some business in terms of, well, can they add value early on? What we're going to do with them when they first start, they won't know how this works or how to do that and all that sort of thing. So that's why I really try and talk to this about things like transferable skills. They can bring new ideas, fresh perspective to your business and add value from the word get-go in terms of what they can bring outside that's perhaps isn't already internally within your business. So I think it's just having a conversation with the business and talk about the pros and what value that graduate can add once they do join, and the fact that, if you get the right graduate, you can really sort of, as we talked about before, kind of mould and develop them into what you want. The non-experienced hire who already have a set way of working, if you like, so you kind of mould them to the way of working for your business.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Jill has had to go for a different meeting, but she has put one more question specifically for Alan. I think you've answered one or two of these, but I'll reiterate them. So how many graduates are you taking on a year? And what effect would this have had on your business if you hadn't been able to find a graduate?
Right at this moment, I suppose we are looking 2 or 3 years in front of us, and we're looking to recruit perhaps 2 graduates per year. Mm-hmm. As I've said earlier, it depends on market influences and what's going on out there in the wider circle. Sorry, Marie? What was the second part of that question?
The second one is what effect would not finding a graduate?
Well, obviously we can't grow the teams as we would like. We can't take on the work that is out there at the moment. As we've said, this industry is it's boom time. There's a lot of work out there, and I'm pleased to say our reputation is going up at the moment, and therefore there's bigger and wider opportunities for us. So if we'd not had the graduates, we wouldn't have had the teams, and we wouldn't have been able to take advantage of the opportunities that are currently out there.
Certainly.
So we would have treaded water rather than just grow.
Yep, sounds like Rise is helping you a lot there as well. So that's, you know, an advantage for both. Sounds amazing. I have one quick question as to how many times can a business use the Rise scheme to actually recruit graduates? Because you've said Alan and RES have used it a couple of times, and you've mentioned that you've got an additional step for businesses who recruited a couple of times. So I'm just wondering what numbers are we dealing with?
So there's no current limit, so you can come back to Rise as many times as you want or you need, if you like, as long as there is still some support required. So as long as you've still got some sort of barrier to recruitment that you need our support, we are still here to help. But as I mentioned, it's just a slight shift in terms of support that you get. So if you're coming back, you've used Rise twice or more before, that support will look a little bit different in terms of our next step support program, which is a bit more of us sort of helping the initial, supporting the initial stage as we do in any recruitment, and then sort of taking a little bit of a step back and letting you lead on that second stage in terms of candidate screening. And it's still basically helping with that transition in terms of you taking the lead on recruitment, us taking a step back and give you the confidence to do it yourself a bit more.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I also, it just occurred to me, so if you've provided a certain, folder of people to recruit to the business, are they meant to recruit one, or do they go back if they haven't found the right person? Do they go back a step?
So there's no obligation. So obviously, ideally, we want you to find a great candidate and hire them, but it doesn't always work out. That's absolutely fine. There's no obligation to hire a graduate. Ultimately, we don't want you to hire somebody who you don't think's right for the business and ultimately doesn't stay on with you. That's a waste of your time and their time, and it doesn't make sense. So we'd hope you find somebody, but if there isn't somebody suitable in that round of recruitment, that is absolutely fine. That's not, as long as you're happy that you've got justifiable reason as to why you don't want to recruit them, that is absolutely fine, and that's not a problem in any way. Yeah,
that's great. That's all from me. Any more questions from anybody for the meeting? Oh, that's great. We've actually managed to get to this. I think, Jane, do you think this is a good point to stop the recording?